like, it looks like it's going to happen. And then I remember that I did a conversation. I went to a conversation with Tom Collins and Terrence Riley, and that was phenomenal to listen how the whole process of picking the architectural and all the wonderful things that PAMM has to offer. But more excitingly to me was that it was going to be run and overseen. And to oversee the museum, I want you to get into that in a moment, because I don't think people realize how much it entails by a woman, which I love. I mean, seriously, when you look at what's happened in the art world, some of the phenomenal directors of operations and really coming up in the into the limelight has been these phenomenal, talented women as yourself. So Miami's so blessed to have you, and I'm sure you're happy to be here versus, at least weather-wise, Minneapolis and Indianapolis, right?
That's right. Actually, Tom Collins recruited me 4 years ago at this time of year from Minnesota, so it wasn't a very hard sell when I came to visit. He assured me I would live in that kind of comfortable elegance all the time. July is not the same as February, so I was in for a bit of shock that first year. I've adapted now.
Yeah, every summer comes, I'm wondering, how did I adapt?
Yeah.
It's always like that shocker. Right now, we are so fortunate, though, for 6 months of the year. It's the most spectacular weather in the world, I think. Yeah. And as we know, everybody in the north is suffering. And so now when you've been under your belt, which is hard to believe looking at you, is over 20 years of experience of running artistic and cultural institutions.
Yeah, my background, I started with museums when I was very, very young, right out of university in California. And so I've been lucky enough to spend my career working in museums and working with amazing teams. And when you mentioned that I'm a woman who's presently running a museum as interim director, I've had a lot of amazing women role models in my career. But there's a team of people running the museum. I'm just one of the people. My colleague Tobias Ostrander. Mm-hmm. He, of course, is the deputy director for curatorial and the chief curator. And my colleague Emily Mello, who's the deputy director for public programs and education. And so we have a strong team that works really hard together to carry on the great work that Terry Riley started, and before him Suzanne Delahente, and then after Terry, of course, Tom Collins, and now we're in an international search for our next brilliant director.
And that's what I wanted to say. When it says interim and deputy director, does that mean that eventually someone else will come in?
Yeah. So
but
Tom,
why? Because you're doing so great. I'm sorry. I have to say the truth. Why would you look for grass on the other side when, you'll get there and it's artificial turf? We have the right grass. This is perfect. What you're doing is phenomenal.
You're very sweet.
Seriously, you actually took up, just to increase corporate contributions by 400%. Yeah. Not only that, museum membership, you took it from 700 to 8,000.
Yeah.
Now memberships, 10,000. Sorry about that. And then annually, within the first 7 months under your supervision, it went from 60,000 visitors annually to over 200,000.
Over 300.
Well, my gosh, you got it. I'm telling you.
No, it's been a great team. All of us have done that together. Tom Collins, Tobias, Emily, myself. We've all run that. And, of course, the amazing board of trustees. We have a board of 47 trustees at the museum who, many of them have worked on seeing this project come to fruition for 20 years and more. Certainly we felt when it opened and we had that moment where it really materialized, we felt it was a miracle. And I'm only in Miami for 4 years, but people who have been in Miami for a very long time, they so cherish the museum because they know how hard people had to work to make it happen. And now the way people love the museum, the way the community really does love the museum, it's really magical. I've in my career of over 20 years, as you said, in this field, never seen anything like it.
There is a strong commitment and passion from the people of Miami. And I think that there was so much controversy on the museum opening up, whether it was going to hit the $220 million capital that I know right now you're probably close to 100% on your goal, on matching that, knowing you. And at the same token, a lot of controversy on the name change, and I know that many people were like, oh, and a couple of shows ago, we really had I don't know if you know this, but the Perez Art Miami Museum is on our show. We mention it a lot through different people because our whole platform and niche of Art Talk with Susana Baker is to really bring the cultural side of Miami. We have the business and the insurance shows and the stock shows and the Dow Jones shows and so on and so forth. But what we concentrate only is the dynamics of the cultural world of Miami. So we bring all the great artistic leaders and artists. And, we've had a fun time. 3 years we've been doing this. And this year has been the most exciting year because I think that everything is being more defined and roles are being, it's not just a hit and bang mist. People are really realizing this is a cultural city to stay. This is not something that we just did as the, bubble of the real estate market of 2007 and we're going to bust and everybody's going to go, ha, 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 you have no heart, that kind of thing. It's like people really realize that from our directors to assistant directors to curators to the artists to the commitment, not only on a national level, but on the local level and even the international level. I mean, I'm sure Tobias Ostranda's desk of different ideas coming from different artists and gallery dealers and other curators from different museums, I'm sure it's tripled or quadrupled since probably the beginning when he was probably searching out. And I'm sure the same thing with your corporate contributions and donations. I mean, I just heard that the museum just got $100,000 grant for one particular thing
from the Warhol Foundation for a Neri Ward show that we're opening in this next fall.
You see?
Yeah.
I thought that was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Anyway, so I thought that was great.
Yeah. It really speaks to, actually, the Neri Ward show is being curated by one of our curators, Diana Nowie, and it really speaks to the quality of the programming that's going on at the museum. So, yes, it came out of the ground. Yes, the building is spectacular, and now we're really starting to see the potential of creating amazing exhibitions that are invited to travel around the world. So this exhibition that's funded by the Warhol Foundation is real endorsement of the quality of programming that our curators have been doing for the museum as well.
Well, I have to tell you that I have been seeing some of the collections and what you just said, Leann. When anybody tuning in, we have Leann Standish from the Perez Art Miami Museum, known as PAMM. And I have to tell you that the collections and the shows they're like at least 2 shows. I mean, I'm always getting wonderful shows. There's such a commitment from education, for Family Day. I mean, every third Thursday, is it?
So we have every second Saturday is free for families. And every first Thursday is free attendance as well. And Thursdays, of course, we're open from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. So those are the nighttime activities. And we always have great programming, music or films. And, of course, in addition to that, our amazing restaurant fair.
And that's every Thursday.
Every first Thursday, we're open for free. And we're open every Thursday until 9 p.m., 10 a.m. to 9 p.m.
And that's great because I got confused on that. I thought it was every first Thursday, believe it or not. And I didn't realize it was every single Thursday.
Every single Thursday there's programming in there.
That's phenomenal.
It is phenomenal. And when you mentioned the different collections, we have 13 different galleries that are in constant motion, in my opinion.
That's what I was saying,
doing
yes.
some dynamic programming. So we just opened this beautiful exhibition by Anthony Tapias.
Mm-hmm.
Really an exquisite exhibition. Then in concert with that, we opened one project gallery. We have project galleries where we invite artists from around the world to do an installation just for us, just in this location, inspired by this location, this unique place that is Miami. So a wonderful artist called Diego Bianchi did a really, really cool installation there. So if you haven't seen it, please come and see it. it's an adventure to explore that piece as well as the tapestry, and they are related. Both of these artists are inspired by recycled materials and bringing us back to our roots.
Now, I wanted to ask you, Leann, it takes a lot to create the attendance. There was there was a lot of second thoughts, to spend this kind of money and the positioning of where it was, and would it bring and draw, just, remember a couple of years ago in 2009, 12, I'm sorry, when the Marlins Park opened up, the whole controversy about, the taxpayers' money and would it really in Little Havana stand? Will it get the attendance? And we know what happened there, where hopefully this year with Eric Standon and all the wonderful things that Claude DeLorean is doing, which I do love Claude, and I know the passion and commitment is there from the team, but the attendance has been still not, met as it was, the goals that were put there to be done. Right. And to date, it's still short from those goals being attended. On the contrary, with the PAMM, you've superseded that from day one.
Yeah. We've had great attendance. I'm not much of a baseball fan, but I will tell you that I think the art in the Marlins Stadium is wonderful.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
And I think it's a beautiful stadium. So, but as far as our attendance goals, we worked with a group called Consulticon, and they did feasibility studies and economic development studies and all kinds of studies which helped us to project our first year attendance. And so they projected us at 200,000 for our first year, and of course we were over 300,000. And our membership again has exceeded our goals at nearly 10,000 households. So I think what it proves out is probably what people who've lived here for a while already knew, and that is that Miami is a 12-month art city. So many people believe that once a year during Art Basel, or Art Week, this is when we really are an art city. Truth be told, there's an appetite that is voracious for art 12 months out of the year. We find that July is one of our highest attended. Last year it was one of our highest attended months. The second Saturday, there were over 4,000 people on the second Saturday in July in the museum.
And why July? I'm curious.
Well, because we do have a huge population in July. We have, a lot of our visitors are international visitors. So in July we have a lot of Brazilian visitors. But people live here 12 months out of the year. It's remarkable to me. Traffic is a little better in July, I would have to admit, but certainly this is a thriving 12-month city with 12 months of interesting cultural activities. And honestly, when we were talking about July and how darn hot it is in July, if you sit on our exquisite terrace in July, the temperature is average of 10 to 12 degrees cooler than it would be if you stood on the grass in the park. Just that beautiful building, that structure that Piers Archidimirang created.
I mean, you're in the steps of the the beautiful Biscayne Bay. You're right there. The cruise ships are across the street. You got those beautiful hydroponic,
the beautiful
pods
hanging gardens
that coming down, and the Stiltsville, and just the way it's planned, it's spread out so eloquently, so simplistic. Cubanism, you're very cute, minimalist, but it has, from the steps going up to just everything there. The sand, I went for a beautiful, they were doing dances on the sand there, beautiful contemporary visual performances, and it was just nice to see that this was our museum. I mean, I'm from New York City originally, but I came down here in '89, so I'm now a native Miami. I mean, I love Miami, and you're absolutely right, Leann. I created the art experience. It came out in 2008 because of the crash. And after 25 years of working with Marriott in their timeshare marketing division, creating programs, I realized that overnight everybody was out of a job, because the last thing the economy needs, normally even when it's great, is timeshare. But of course the banks went under with homesteads, timeshare paper became null and void, and so my industry of marketing and bringing families was over. And after about a year and a half of seeing the economy, I was invited by Marty Margulies. His son Mike was doing as an artist agent for the first year, and he had an artist called Alex Yanis, and they were doing something in David Lombardi's property, Museo Volto. So I decided to go. And I live in the design district, but being of another world, at 9:30, I have 2 minors back then at least, I would be in bed. So I would see the lights, but I never went to second Saturdays. That evening I decided to go, and I saw 7,000 people. And I went, what? And I couldn't believe it, because I live in a design district, and I could throw a bowling ball any day of the week and not hit a soul. And that day there was 7,000 people on the streets. And I said, oh my God. And that's when it hit me. The light bulb went off, and I went, my God, I've been 20 years working with every concierge you could think about. There are 12 million tourists, and no one knows Wynwood back then. No one knew Design District, really. And the arts were very minimal. But Tony Goldman was doing his thing. The galleries were there. The collections have always been there. Any museum acquisition department would definitely send its directors to see the Rubels or the Dela Cruzes or the Margulies warehouse to get their trends on the contemporary collectors. So it was to me, when I went and I saw the next week, I decided to visit my cultural institutions to really see what was happening in Miami. And I came back and I said, Art Basel is every day in Miami. I mean, you have 3 of the best collectors. Jeffrey Loria with the Marlins Park is another collection. I mean, you have more than 3, but 3 that I'm talking about in Wynwood.
There are a lot of collections none of us know about.
Yeah, I know. And, you know, I'm not talking about the Sinceros, but there's a lot of collections. But in Wynwood and Design District, the 3 top collections of the Dela Cruzes and Margulies, they're there year-round, and Rubels. And the wonderful galleries, and, you know, Ascaso that came from Venezuela, they showed pure masters. You go through this little warehouse on 25th Street, and it's a little gray warehouse, not so little when you enter, and there's all, you know, Boteros and Deridias and Palacios and, you know, Vigas, and you're like, oh my God, I just saw all this graffiti, and I'm sitting in a room full of original Boteros, and that's what Miami has to offer. And so I'm with you. Art is every day for me. And so when we started with the art experience 5 years ago, it was really seeing people come little by little, and a few tours, where now everybody wants to see what's happening. And so we're always being asked about the Perez Art Miami Museum, and we tell everybody.
It's just, if you don't mind, it's
Miami
the Perez
Museum?
Art Museum Miami.
Perez Art Museum Miami.
That's right.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. You're just getting your M's mixed up.
Yeah. Well, last time I did worse when I had Tobias. I couldn't even get it right. That was like a year and a half ago. Okay. So I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
So I have to tell you that you're right. You know, there's so much going on, and just your cultural institution, which to me is the most important, one of the most important, has so many activities going on for every type of collector or art enthusiast or
just, you know, folks who are just curious.
Yeah. Exactly.
We are what every museum strives to be in such a literal way. We are the living room of Miami's cultural scene.
I agree with that totally. And I have to tell you, you have in the education department, you're also starting, I understand, some classes with the children.
Yeah, well,
like art camps or something.
Yeah, we do. We have spring break art camp coming up, and so our members and our general public families are invited to. I'll tell you that our website is amazing. It's PAMM.org, and you can find out all about the camps programs. There's spring break camp. There's summer camp. There's also adult studio programs going on now. It's a really amazing programs. Artists from the community are invited to come and learn more about what's happening at the museum and create programs around what's going on in the museum already. These are really intensely lovely programs, both for adults and children.
Well, we're going to come right back. We're going on to commercial breaks and Art Talk with Susana Baker with the lovely Leann Standish. We'll be right back to talk more with Leann Standish.